Mark, welcome to the Grin Gets Real podcast. I'm real excited to have you on here so that we can dig into SEO.
Thanks so much for having me, Katya.
Absolutely. So let's hit the ground running. Let's have you provide our listeners a little high-level view of who you are and what your expertise is in SEO.
So I guess the way I would describe myself is I'm an entrepreneur, specifically online business entrepreneur, with a particular skill set in organic SEO strategies to rank the businesses that I run. Do you need more detail?
Well, tell me what you do from an SEO perspective. Like, why SEO? How did you get into SEO? Marketing is so broad and SEO is very specific. And it is one of these things that you really have to, if you're going to be that team marketer and dive into that and know all of those things, why did you select SEO?
I think I just stumbled into SEO. So I started in the online space 2009, trying to rank a e-commerce store or trying to get some traffic to an e-commerce store, which is probably when I first came by the idea of SEO and like how to actually get a website to rank on Google and get some traffic. And I guess it just resonated with me because it's full of data and sound kind of strategies that you can deploy and see results of your actions immediately. Yeah. Whereas other parts of marketing is a little bit more nebulous, I guess. That's one way I would describe it. I just kind of went into SEO and here I am 12 years later, still doing it, 13 years later. And
that's why you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
That we can just kind of dive into it. And before we go too deep into tactics, I am really just kind of curious with you starting off kind of that SEO career journey with trying to figure out how I can get my e-commerce store to rank. I'm assuming that you obviously now have experience across multiple brands and industries. Is it different for a SaaS company from an SEO perspective than an e-commerce D2C brand?
I mean, there's subtle nuances, but the fundamental principles don't change. So, I mean, from my perspective, I should have said today I run an agency, an SEO agency, but we've also got our own brands. I used to have an e-commerce store, not the one that I'm referring to from like 10 years ago, but another one. So I've been personally involved in ranking e-commerce websites for myself as well as for clients, and SaaS websites for myself and for clients because we've also got some SaaS tools. The principles don't change, but there are subtle nuances. Like the audience is different. The platforms that you build these different businesses on, like e-commerce tends to be nowadays Shopify, which has its own challenges from an SEO perspective. Whereas like SaaS, people build those on various different CMSs, which tend to be a little bit more easy than Shopify SEO.
Oh, I love that. So I'd like to just kind of hear, the topic of this particular podcast is really becoming that topical authority in your industry. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on why really having topical authority is that vital piece for a brand.
Yeah, so I guess the way that I come at SEO and have done for nearly a decade now is in the early days, I looked at a website like Wikipedia and I was like, okay, well, Wikipedia ranks for everything. What are they doing that's unique? Well, they produce lots of very good quality content that is very detailed. They cover a topic in its entirety. So not just the article that you're on, but when you look at an article on Wikipedia, it's internally linked to every other relevant article about that topic. And then it onions out to various other topics. And I was like, okay, well, that seems to be working for them because obviously Wikipedia ranks for everything. And so, I came to this idea of topical authority fairly early on that, the idea is to cover a niche, whether that's a micro niche or a broader niche, in as much detail as possible, to establish yourself in the eyes of Google as almost like a mini Wikipedia for the topic.
Okay.
And that strategy has served me very well. And so, that is the foundation of how I tackle SEO today, and probably will do into the future. It's creating lots of very high quality content at scale to put your flag in the ground and say, hey, this domain, I know a lot about it. I've spoken a lot about it, and Google, come check me out. In a summary, I guess that encapsulates the idea of a topical authority.
That's a great breakdown of it. And we actually have tactics. This podcast is going to be slightly different because we do have like a case study that we're going to dive into, because also SEO is so meaty. I feel like there's so many things that we can dive into, but the podcast is limited. So let's start with the case study that you and I had discussed, which I believe is for the brand PerkUp. So before we dive into just kind of the 3 tactics for attacking SEO for PerkUp and kind of how that led to some of their success, can you just give the audience just an understanding of who PerkUp is? What was their biggest challenge when they approached you?
Yeah, so they're a funded startup, and they're in the employee benefits or employee reward space. And they came to us with basically a brand new domain and no traffic. And said, how do we get traffic? I gave them the whole spiel about you need to become a topical authority.
And they were like, great.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, exactly. And so the strategy we deployed for them was, okay, well, let's take, because I love working with like new domains or like new businesses because they haven't got legacy issues, 1,000 or 10,000 pages of content that we have to first audit and address. So, we don't do that piece anyway. We're fully aligned just to creating content at scale. So with them, it was great because they just needed lots of content, and the niche that they're in is very well defined. It's all about employee benefits, employee rewards, employee gifts. And so, it was quite easy to formulate what we term a topical map, to map out the entire niche, every single keyword in the niche, group all those keywords together, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second, and then create content at scale for them. And it's worked really well because they've gone from nowhere on the internet to now ranking for pretty much everything they want to rank for. And it's just getting better and better and better, because once you start ranking all of the other great signals that you need for SEO, particularly the off-page signals, so like getting good quality links and so on, starts to happen naturally. And people start to link to you because they're discovering your content.
You essentially become the authority, the topical authority, if you will.
They're on route to becoming the authority on gifting and rewarding employees.
So how long did it take to start seeing some success? Because the thing that I think is interesting about SEO is I've always defined it as the long game. The short game is those quick, pay to play, pay per click. I'm gonna see traffic based on the ads that I put in front of someone. But SEO is so strategic and methodical and seems so much more like a longer play. So based on where they started and when you started to see success, can you give me kind of like a timeline?
Yeah. So with them, it's been particularly fast, unusually fast, because you're right, like SEO is a long game. It's very much like a marathon. And I think a lot of people fail just because they don't stay in the game long enough. That's potentially one of the reasons why lots of brands don't see results. They tried for a few months or maybe 6 months and then just, no, we're not seeing results. And the painful thing is you won't see results in 3 to 6 months necessarily. Not saying you can't, but that's very fast. With PerkUp, it was very fast. I think that was partly due to the the scale at which we were doing creating content, and the fact that they were already at zero. So you can only start from zero.
You can't go negative, right?
Yeah.
You can't go negative.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, it was probably one of the fastest. As I said, I've been in the game now for over a decade, and it's one of the fastest results. But like realistically, I think a brand with SEO, you should be thinking on a 12 to 18 to 24 month time frame to start seeing significant results. Now, obviously, if you're creating content that's evergreen, that should deliver fruit for many years into the future, which is very different to pay per click, because you pay today, you see a result, hopefully a positive one, and you'll keep paying. But if you stop paying, the results go away. Whereas obviously with SEO, it's you pay today, see no results, and then in the future, hopefully see results, but those results are then sustained for a longer period of time.
Well, and I feel like you are in a very tricky position. I think that you're in a very tricky position because what you're describing almost sounds like you're consistently trying to sell like the hope for like you are going to rank. Trust me, trust me, trust me. There are all of these things that you can do. This is when you're going to see results. I think that SEO is obviously, it's been around for a really long time. Well, since the internet, obviously. So, it's got time on its side for proving that point of that you just have to invest and then you kind of balance it out. Now, some of the tactics that you employ for that long game is what I want us to really dive into as well too. And specifically as it's tied to PerkUp, I'm going to break down the 3 tips that I picked up from it. Well, not picked up, you very much so outlined it because it was very well written. But there is the keyword clustering, the bulk content creation, and then the interlinking. So let's start with keyword clustering as a tactic for that long-term SEO play. What is it?
Yeah. So how keyword clustering works and how that relates to the broader idea of becoming a topical authority is the first step is to figure out, what are all the keywords in your niche? And that is seemingly a challenging task to do, but it's actually not that complex. So if you're using a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush, the way that we do it is we start very broad and we think about what is the seed keyword that defines your niche. And, I was looking at one right now. We've just got a client who sells engagement rings, wedding rings, which I've never looked at the niche, but obviously it's an incredibly lucrative niche. So this is what I love about SEO and working in the agency space is you see new businesses all the time that you don't think about. Anyway, so what I did earlier today is we put the keyword into Ahrefs and we went very broad. So we just started with engagement ring or engagement rings as the seed keyword. With PerkUp, it would have been employee gifts or employee gift or employee reward or employee benefit. In fact, with PerkUp, you can start just with employee as your seed.
Interesting. Keyword. I feel like that's so broad.
Yeah. Well, hear me out. So let's say PerkUp. Actually, I'll interchange between the engagement ring as well, because there's some interesting ideas that came through earlier today. But let's say you put employee into Ahrefs, into their keyword explorer, and it's going to give you, 1 million keywords with the word employee in it. Yeah. It's got a really nice feature where you can say, well, only show me keywords that include employee and something else. And so here, that's where you might put gift, gifts. You obviously want the plural format because people type it in differently, rewards, reward, benefit, benefits, and so on. And so you add all of these include keywords that now moderate your list down from, say, 1 million to, let's say, 30,000 keywords. But now what you've got essentially is every single keyword that is either got employee and gift together or employee and reward together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next thing you do is you take those 30,000 keywords, which is a lot to cluster. So you might want to bring that down a little bit by using other modifiers like volume, like the volume of the keyword. But let's say you took 30,000 keywords, because you could do that. And what you want to do is you want to figure out what keywords belong together, what are in the same topic universe.
Yeah.
And the reason why you want to do that is Google doesn't map one keyword to one page, right? It maps potentially hundreds or even thousands of keywords to one page. Yeah. And so you want to find out what are those keywords in the group. And you can use a software to do that. There's two types of softwares that do that analysis. The one uses natural language processing. So it takes keyword and figures out, is this keyword the same, semantically the same to another keyword? And if they are semantically the same, it groups them together. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and the way that we do it with our software, which is called key clusters, is we take the keyword, we put it into the Google SERP, we look at the ranking results, and then we put another keyword in and we see, are those ranking results, are there at least 3 or more pages that are the same? And if they are, for those two keywords, they get grouped together. So we're actually using real Google data to figure out which pages are ranking for which set of keywords. Right? Are you following, or have I lost you?
Yes. I just have a deer in the headlights look for anybody who's listening. That's my thinking and listening. That's my thinking and listening look. Ask anybody who knows me. Yes, I'm totally following.
Definitely looks like you're processing it. So
that's a really great call out, Mark. Thank you so much. You're like, she's confused. No, I'm totally following it. I'm picturing this.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to like show someone this. But anyway, once you've got your list of clustered keywords or your grouped together keyword list, you now know every single topic that you need to write on. Okay. And for a big niche like, employee gifts, this could be 300 to 500 different topics that you need to cover. That's a lot of content, right? Some of that content's not going to be blog content. Some of it's going to be landing page content or product page content, or different search intents for different types of content. But some of it's going to be informational blog content, so you're going to have to write a lot of blog content.
Yeah.
And so with PerCup, that's what we did. We created a topical map for every single idea or topic in the niche, and then defined or prioritized which ones we're going to start writing on. And with them, because they had reasonable budget, we started with 100,000 words of content, and we've now scaled that to about 300,000 words of content, which is probably about 250 articles or so.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of content.
That goes into the bulk content creation tactic.
Yeah.
Tell me about how much content in general, because I do feel like PerCup is a unique situation, because you're right, they started with no content. So when you're going from, or very little, right? So when you're going from such a low, a small amount of content to a large amount of content, I can see how you make those leaps. But let's say I'm just kind of looking to improve my domain authority, right? So I'm obviously going to implement an SEO strategy. I've got my keyword clusters. How much content should I be pushing out to see that steady, kind of a steady drip into like the SEO pool?
Yeah. In an ideal world, if you could click your fingers and all 300 articles could be written today, that would be better than all 300 articles being written tomorrow or next week or next year, right? The earlier you can write and publish content, the faster the content can get indexed, the more links that content is going to get, because it's got more time to exist on the internet. The broader and faster your topical coverage is going to be. So the rule of thumb is, in a perfect world, if you could publish as fast as possible, you should publish. And not try, slowly drip feed, 1 or 2 or 5 articles a month. Like, what you want to do is, let's try get 50 articles done this month and 50 next month, and then see what happens in month 3, and start like analyzing what did those 2 sprints look like. So, going back to your question about SEO being a marathon, it is in terms of results. Yeah. But I am very much of the view that you want to sprint in terms of content. early on in your SEO campaign. So, if you can get, depending on your budget and the resources you have, the more you can publish, the better. Obviously, you want to ensure the content is great quality and you're doing all the right on-page SEO stuff. But if you're just assuming that's all the case, you want to publish as fast as possible.
All right. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of on-page SEO because, like I said, SEO is very meaty, and I feel like there's so many different avenues that we can take. But one of the things that you had mentioned as far as like the type of content that you can create is outside of blogs is also feeding into product pages. Can you explain to me the difference between I don't want you to explain to me the difference between a blog and a product page. I understand what the difference is, but what I'm thinking through, and I'd love the listeners to really understand, is a product page isn't really deep. Like, it's not like it has as many words and available content space as perhaps a blog does, where you have the opportunity and the ability to really expand on a particular topic and like really hone in on a keyword cluster. So what does the execution on a product page look like?
I guess I'll take it one step back just to kind of give you my view on how we define pages. So once you've got these topic clusters, it will give you the primary keyword of that topic cluster, and it's going to give you all the keyword variations for the primary keyword.
Okay.
Often you can look at the primary keyword and figure out the search intent. What does someone actually want when they type that keyword in? But many times you can't, right? It's not exactly obvious what the search intent is. Now, the beauty is you can put the keyword into Google, and Google will tell you the search intent by looking at the ranking pages.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is the first mistake that most people make, is they create a page that is not the page that Google thinks the search intent is for that keyword or that set of keywords, right? Okay. So they'll create a product page or a category page. Let's say it's a Shopify store. They'll create a collection page or a category page when it should be an informational blog content. Or they'll create informational blog content when it should be a category page. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a major problem because you're just never going to rank if you're not serving the search intent of the keyword. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
Again, this is a processing look, Mark.
It's
a processing look.
So before you even start defining like what goes on the page, you first need to figure out what is the search intent. Search intent usually falls into like 4 categories. It's usually it's either informational, it's navigational, like someone's trying to get somewhere. So like someone's typed in like Facebook login or something like that. Yeah. It's got commercial intent or buying intent, usually a product page or a landing page or something like that.
Okay.
Or it's comparative, like it's X versus Y or review of X, or best places to do something, like so it's comparing what are the best things to do, in Chile or something like that.
Okay.
And so, but even within those 4 informational intents, it gets complex because we spoke about this earlier, not on this call, but on our previous call. About listicles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like,
I was very passionate.
So that's informational. Like people or Google is everything that Google's ranking is a listicle for a specific topic, then you need to create a listicle. Like there's no point creating like a narrative story. Then just not going to write a narrative story.
Yeah.
So like what tends to be a listicle is like a best of roundup.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the best golf clubs or something like that.
Top tips.
Yeah. Or top tips to, I don't know, travel to India.
Lots of traveling.
I'm in the travel niche. One of my
I know.
So I think defining what should be on the page starts with search intent. Once you've clear on search intent, you can then create the content exactly matches the search intent, which gets into the detail of like the writing piece, because we spend a huge amount of time training our writers to figure out the search intent and then like stick to the search intent and not go off in any other direction. And it's super important that it's captured in the introduction as succinctly as possible, because people don't have time, right? So if they hit the page and they feel they're not on the right page, they're going to bounce. That's a negative user signal, not great for SEO. What you want is someone to hit the page and be like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And it's easier to navigate. I can get the information I want. I feel like my search query has been satisfied. Great user experience. Happy days for SEO. So, when it comes to the writer, they need to do that basically, which there's lots of subtle nuances happening to create content that serves search intent.
I love that. Okay, so we've gone over keyword clustering. Bulk content creation. You just reviewed how you can be strategic with your bulk content creation by looking at search intent, but volume is really key in general. If you have the time and the resources, push out that content in all of the forms that benefit the search intent.
Yeah, and you can work it out, right? So you can work out how much time and how much money are you going to need to spend if you wanted to become a topical authority in a specific niche. How much time and money? So once you've got your topical map, let's say there's 300 ideas there. And let's say most of it's informational blog content. And like on average, a blog article is going to, let's just say, be roughly 1,500 words. That's 450,000 words of content. Okay. So that's the number you got to hit. Well, how many writers do you need for that? And how much money is that going to cost? And, roughly if you're spending, let's say 10 cents a word, that's $45,000, right? So you're going to spend like around $50,000 to become a topical authority in the niche. For a lot of people, that's a ton of money. For some people, that's not that much money. Like if you're a funded startup with some money to spend to dominate a niche, that's really a drop in the ocean. Some people spend that a day on Google advertising, right? So it depends where you are on the spectrum.
It does depend where you are on that spectrum, right? Oh man, I could go down a totally different path. We need to leave our listeners with that last tip, which is the interlinking part. So what is that? And what is that when we talk about interlinking? I was going to say, what is that and how many links? But in general, break down interlinking for me and what the benefits are. Like, what are those signals from an SEO perspective that Google is picking up that says, this is a great page?
I guess in that case study, we focused on interlinking because we just ignored all the basic on-page stuff, right? Because we just assumed that most people are going to get the basics of their on-page correct. So assume you've got the basics, the 80-20 of on-page nailed. I think the biggest lever you can pull that you've got control of and that's very affordable is beautifully internally linking up your site architecture, joining up your site into a wonderful matrix. And in a matrix that's been very clearly thought out. It's not just random internal links, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to send strong signals on the anchor text that you place your link, referring to another internal page that is trying to target that keyword. And doing that in a very careful way, because if you place links in an ambiguous way, let's say, let me try give you a real example. I'm in one of the niches I'm in is hiking the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. Okay. So let's say I've got a page on the Inca Trail.
Okay.
And I'm writing an article about the campsites on the Inca Trail. So this page is all about the campsites. This page is about the Inca Trail. But I've also got another page that's specifically about the short Inca Trail, the 2-day Inca Trail.
Okay.
Now, on my page about the campsites, I mention the Inca Trail, But instead of linking to the Inca Trail on the text Inca Trail, the Inca Trail page, I link to the short Inca Trail. And somewhere else on the website, I'm linking to the Inca Trail site. Well, I just sent two signals now, one to two different pages. So you've got to be like really careful with your internal linking.
Okay.
And making sure that you're joining up your architecture in a very clear, succinct way. And at the beginning of this conversation, I spoke about Wikipedia. They are the geniuses of internal linking, right? When you go on Wiki, you inevitably go down a rabbit hole because everything's hyperlinked and it's all beautifully hyperlinked to the right page. And so you want to try to do the same thing on your own website. And how the clustering report helps with that is you not only have the primary keyword of every page, but you've got all the keyword variations. So you could use those keyword variations as your internal linking architecture, as opposed to only using the primary keyword. And then, of course, we're not going to speak about off-page link building, but if you do decide to go do off-page link building, like guest posting or whatever you're going to do to try build links, you could use those keyword variations again for your external link anchors pointing back to your website. But on the internal linking side, we've seen extraordinary results by really carefully thinking about how we're going to join up our website.
Yeah.
Avoiding any obvious issues around not joining up a page. So a page suddenly becomes an orphan. It's got nothing pointing into it. It's not linking up thing. It's sitting there as an island on its own. That's the absolute worst case. And in the best case scenario, you want a site that is so beautifully joined up that the user experience is wonderful because they can move through your website and get all the information they need.
Yeah.
And the Google signals are incredible as well for an SEO perspective from the results I've seen, like it really good.
I mean, ideally, if I'm looking at my Google Analytics, I want to see people come to my website and go pages deep. That would be a strong signal that I've got some good interlinking, or at least some information that has a natural flow for people, and their time on site is a pretty good time on site for whatever website that is. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I mean, time on site can be misleading because, as you said, some websites, the point is not to have that much time on site. Let's say
it definitely does depend on the site and the intention.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. But ultimately you don't want to stand out. When you look at like bounce rate and time on site, what you really want is Google will have a sense of what the right period of time is for the specific search query. And you don't want to be miles off that. And a negative user signal in my mind is someone who comes to a website and bounces immediately and then continues searching for the thing that they were searching for originally.
Yeah.
That's basically telling Google, hey, I searched for this. I went to this website, didn't answer my query. I came back, I searched for it again. And the second page or the third page I looked at did answer my search query. Well, that second or third page are going to be the ones that start
it's going to rank better, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you do want the user experience to be incredible or to satisfy the search intent.
Well, this has been incredibly helpful. I will sum up the keyword clustering, bulk content creation, and interlinking. I could really honestly talk to you even more about all of the other facets of SEO. And so then you can also continue to see that deer in the headlights look as I am processing things. But I do have one final question for you, and that is the prediction time question. And this one I think is going to be really interesting for me, because I believe the SEO has just, like I said, it's been around. So it's not like it's a new thing. So I'd love to hear what you see changing in just kind of the next year regarding the world of SEO.
So there was a recent Google update in September, which was all about helpful content and specifically trying to target what I think is inauthentic content that has proliferated the internet.
Interesting.
Specifically Google, not so much, or certainly not content that is either user generated on social media platforms or on forums. that content tends to be incredibly authentic. And the
Yeah.
younger generations are using those platforms to get their information more now than potentially Google.
Yeah.
Specifically where authenticity is important. And where authenticity is important is in the review space, reviewing products, services, experiences.
Yeah.
And so certainly for that segment of search, I think Google's rapidly trying to catch up to TikToks and Snapchats and Quoras and Reddits, where content tends to be much more authentic because the person who's saying something is not only just saying it, but they're actually wearing the thing, or they're at the place, or whatever it is. And it's much more authentic. Obviously, they've got authenticity. Google's got that element from YouTube. But so I guess my long answer is I think search is going to trend towards figuring out authentic content versus just content that is well researched and someone's just rehashing some information.
Yeah.
Certainly for experiences, products, so like things that one wants to like get information about the thing, like the experience.
Absolutely. I can stand behind and get behind that prediction for sure. Because I think that you're right. Like when it comes to social media, the amount of things that I search also on social media as well too. If I'm looking for a recipe, I'm going to Pinterest. If I want to learn how to do something, I'm going on YouTube. If I want a quick hack, I'm going on TikTok. The cat's out of the bag. I use social to search that because I think it's quicker and it's got the digestible video content, right? That I think that's what people are really craving, is those short videos of just tell me. I don't want to have to read it. Just tell me how it is. What a great prediction. I cannot wait. I hope that you are correct.
I think it's inevitable because, I mean, you and I use the different methodologies that you've just mentioned, or different services like Pinterest or whatever it is. Yeah. But I mean, the younger generations, they're just on TikTok, right? Or mainly TikTok.
Yes.
They're getting their information. I've never used TikTok, right? So I'm dating myself.
Oh, that's going to be a whole other conversation as soon as we get off online.
but I mean, Google's aware of this. And I mean, like I'm not a huge user of Reddit, but I mean, Reddit is enormous. And the quality of content on there, because it's user generated with most people are saying something, have something interesting to say that's not being digested through like an editorial team at like Investopedia or something like that. And it's just so much more authentic because of that. So they're aware of this. I suspect they're finding ways. You can already see they're starting to index and rank that type of user content more in the SERP. And so the SERP's becoming much more blended with the organic results getting blended down below. So usually there's like image pack and there's a video pack and there's like core results, tweets and a knowledge graph. And you're like, well, where are the organic results? It's suddenly getting pushed further and further away.
You got to be able to compete. Well, that is an outstanding prediction. I can't wait for the year to unfold so that we can see just kind of the traction that can be made on Google's side. And I can't thank you enough for coming on here. I definitely kept you longer than intended. I apologize. Can you imagine if we had talked about all the things that I had wanted to talk about? But thank you again so much for just coming on here, having a great attitude and sharing your knowledge.
No, thanks so much for having me, Katya.